I'm Mabel John. You're watching healthcare coverage here at the World Healthcare Congress 2017 from Washington, D.C. And in our studio right now, we have Dr. Alan Warren, Chief Technology Officer at Oscar. Good to see you, Dr. Warren.
It's great to be here this afternoon, Mabel.
There's so much going on in your space right now, and certainly a lot of uncertainty as well. Are you watching that very carefully from your perch in New York?
Frankly, we've got people in Oscar that pay very close attention to what's going on in Washington and the environment there. But I think fully half of my job is working with my teams to stay focused on what we're building and what we're executing on. This market right now is tremendously volatile. There's a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen in Washington with the legislative front. And so all we can do right now is build towards the vision that we started when we started this company and execute on our path. And when the dust settles and things stabilize, we'll be there standing and ready to roll.
What was the original vision of Oscar when you started out?
It had a couple of facets to it. One is just something that I think everyone can identify with. The healthcare world from a consumer standpoint is just badly broken. It's a very painful experience. It's very opaque. You go to the doctor or to a hospital and you have no idea what it's going to cost, what the procedures are that you're being put through and having to suffer. And it's a very scary world for consumers. When you add onto that the costs in paying for healthcare and the insurance prices today, it makes for a very difficult combination for consumers. And it all came to a head when a couple of our founders actually got an EOB. They got a statement of benefits back from their insurer around some treatment for a kid or an ankle sprain, and they couldn't read that and actually understand what had happened and where the costs were coming from. And that sort of sparked them. They're both technologists at heart, and they said, this is a space that badly needs to be fixed. It needs to be changed and transformed, and we think technology can be at the heart of that.
Okay.
And so they built a technology founded and at the core company to address a lot of the problems around the healthcare industry, and that's spun into a lot of different directions and pieces that are necessary in making that work.
Okay, so at the beginning, it really sought to be something completely revolutionary and different, and
Yes.
making insurance accessible to those that maybe could not afford it before. More recently, the company has had to pull out of some markets and also had to raise premiums. So is it unfortunate perhaps that you've turned into something that you were trying to not become?
Well, there are pieces of this whole landscape that you can control and manage, and there are pieces of it that are an inherent part of the landscape. If you have doctors' costs and fees at a certain level, you're going to have to take in plan premiums to cover those. And unfortunately, in this particular arena, we started off in the individual healthcare market rather than in group and employed. It tends to be a very price-sensitive market, and there are a lot of people that are needing subsidies. They come in through the various exchanges and get assistance with payments for the premiums, and they are enormously cost-sensitive. And pricing differentials between different offerings and what kinds of things are being covered or not covered can create huge fluxes in sort of risk population, risk distributions. And there are certain markets that have not yet stabilized around this. There are certain markets in New York we started in, and that's been a tremendous market for us, that operate very, very well. San Antonio is another big market, and there's in that market a very heavily subsidized population, but it too is stabilized very strongly, and those are great growth areas for us. We did have two markets that we were getting down to being the only insurance carrier, and they were very unstable. We did have to pull back from a couple of those, but we're seeing the general landscape starting to stabilize around us, and we're seeing our technology develop and evolve to the point to where we're able to work through that and still operate and go back to our core values of making things simpler and more transparent for our members and being their sidekick, their helper, as they're trying to work their way through this healthcare system.
I mean, part of the excitement over your company was the technology capabilities and being able to engage consumers in areas where they hadn't seen that kind of engagement before. But you also say cautiously, you can't assume that everyone's engaged just because they can get something on their phone. What do you mean by that?
There are people that think that if you come up with the next killer app, that's the magical thing that'll get you engagement. That doesn't work in this industry, particularly if you're in the seat of the insurer. The natural reaction of the consumer is, if the insurance company is calling, it's about bills or payments, and I don't want to talk to them.
Right.
But we go out to hospital systems and they say, how do you get your members to answer the phone?
Right.
Because typically they won't. And the only way you do that, people focus a lot on the technology and the applications that we've built in the mobile apps, but it really starts from the first time the member touches you and contacts you, whether it's trying to figure out what plan is right for them and they're first learning about deductibles and how the insurance system works, to getting their first ID card and unboxing and the materials you put in front of them. You have to start building and reinforcing a relationship with them.
Yes.
Engagement is actually really a relationship.
Right.
And you have to support that relationship in making the user, the consumer, your member, understand that you're there trying to figure out the best way through this path with them and for them. You're not trying to figure out what you don't have to pay for and minimize costs. And that comes from your initial sign up, from the applications that we're delivering, to the free telemedicine visits that we provide, to the clinic that we've built in Brooklyn, and starting to provide direct care. Each one of these is a touch point that the member can come to that starts building that and reinforcing that relationship. The final one comes back to the concierge teams, which is at the heart of our customer care model. Our teams are dedicated teams of 4 people assigned to each Oscar member and their family. And anytime they call in, they'll get one of these 4 people who know them, know their background, know what they're thinking about, and can help them find the right care in the area, understand what's going on with a bill or some follow-up treatment that needs to be done after they come out of the hospital.
So very personal hand-holding,
It's
if
very
you will.
personal. It's building and establishing a complete connection with that member.
How have you determined that that works?
There are a couple of key metrics that really support the fact that we're pretty far along that path. The first one that struck me when I was first thinking about joining Oscar, fully a third of our members come in through customer referrals. I'm sorry, I have never heard of anyone referring their insurance company before in the healthcare world.
Right.
And 1/3 of our members heard about it from family members or friends or people at work that liked Oscar, and they went to Oscar and signed up. But there are some other key metrics. One thing that everyone talks a lot about now is telemedicine.
Yes.
The problem with telemedicine has been that people don't actually use it. You can offer it free for your members, for your employees, and the industry average on engagement for telemedicine is around 2 to 3%. We get on the order of 30 to 40% engagement. 30 to 40% of our members in a given year will make a telemedicine call instead of going to a doctor's office, and they can get prescriptions over the phone and get them set to their local pharmacy and the like. And this also tying back to engagement, for those members that are using step counting and using our application regularly, the number goes up from 30% to almost 40% on the number that will actually use telemedicine calls.
Is it because you attract a certain type of consumer who is used to that kind of engagement with technology, or?
There is some of that. You think about mobile world and that being a hip, young thing. It's actually, there are very interesting demographic variations around. You get older population still using technology, but they would rather use their laptop.
Okay.
Younger population may use their mobile phone.
Yes.
And we get very different demographics and use of various of these technologies between New York and San Antonio,
Okay.
for instance. So you see lots of variations, but our population is pretty well distributed. We do get a lot of millennials, the 30-year-olds that are coming off of their parents' plan and needing to find insurance for the first time. We also have a sizable population in the 50 to 60-year-old range.
Okay, I'm going to be losing you in a moment to the panel discussion. What is the key takeaway that you're going to be leaving with the attendees in that session?
Basically, it's that the healthcare world, we all know that it's broken today. It's very painful, and costs are going up precipitously. On the costs front, my personal opinion is that the largest cause is that the incentives are in the wrong place. The fee for service structure for providers incent them to add more services in rather than figure out the right care for the member. So in addition to the technology approach that we've been taking and the member engagement work that we've been doing to actually get them to come to us first, it's around how you build your networks and the partnerships you can do with the providers towards a value-based and an outcome-based solution rather than a fee-for-service approach, which just serves to drive the costs up further.
Okay, and my final question is, how has your experience been with the World Healthcare Congress?
I'm
this year?
loving it here. It's a great set of people, the various venues and talks that are going on. I've enjoyed every one of them. It's been tremendous. And
Thank you.
Also great to get to spend some time with you.
Thank you, Dr. Warren.
Thanks
a
very much,
pleasure.
Mabel.
And thank you to you for watching. Stay tuned. We have many more interviews coming right along.